I have a friend, Thomas, who works as a freelance artist creating booths and installations for event shows. He's quite talented at designing interactive presentations for companies to promote and showcase their products. The last time we got together, he told me that he had signed on to be part of something big that he wasn't allowed to talk about due to an NDA. Then this past week, he included me as blind carbon copy in the following email. As soon as I finished reading this, I gave Thomas a ring, but the call went straight to voicemail. I drove over to see him, but when I buzzed his apartment, there was no response. His truck's in the parking lot, so at this point I can't tell if he's not answering or if he's not there. I know I don't have to wait to file a missing person report, but I'm going to give him a day to call me back, and then I'm taking this to the police. To Charles Fetterman, subject, Beyond VantaBlack project. Mr. Fetterman, my name is Thomas Laurent. I'm one of the artists recruited by Mr. Gustav Schoenen for the Beyond VantaBlack project for your company. I won't beat around the bush here, sir. I'm scared out of my wits. When I was first approached and offered the chance to work with the next step in VantaBlack, it was like winning the lottery. VantaBlack's nearly 100% absorption is a fantastic achievement. I assumed that the only possible next step was perfect 100% light absorption. When I was shown how BVB was not only absorbed all light, but some of the scattered lights of the surrounding area, I was astounded. The way it strips away the defined edges of an object like it's enveloping the thing in a black fog, it's breathtaking. I'm telling you this because I'm assumed you've never actually seen BVB used before. If you had, you would not have approved the production of it. The colors are natural, sir. It doesn't belong to this world. When we look up at the night sky, we think we are seeing the pure absence of light, but we aren't. Light reflected off the atmosphere, light from the earth and moon and other stars, it protects us from the true emptiness of the void. BVB is the void, Mr. Fetterman. It extends beyond the boundaries we give it and sucks away the light from everything around it. I'm writing to you today because something has happened. I, along with two other artists, Genevieve Levert and Pierre Edartu, were asked to come up with 3 unique exhibits with which to show off the glory of Beyond VantaBlack, which we did. My own art installation remains down in your research department, unfinished, where it shall remain as I have no intention of working further on it. Mr. Levert's idea was a room, the inside of which was completely painted with BVB, save one wall which was installed with a full-length mirror from floor to ceiling. I've been inside the room, and it's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. Imagine stepping into absolute nothingness. Every step you're unable to determine if your foot is going to touch solid ground or not. To make matters worse, she had the floor installed at a slant, so as you try to walk towards the center, you're going up an incline but can't see the angle at which it goes. There is a single white light in the center of the ceiling for the matter of allowing whoever's inside to at least see themselves. Otherwise it would be like not existing at all, just pure blackness. Because of the unique properties of BVB though, you can't actually see the light in the ceiling, even when staring directly at it. Once the door is sealed, the occupant is trapped inside with only their reflection. The effects are unnerving. Yesterday, after Miss Levert finished her project, she shut herself inside the room, I presume to see how it looked. I was busy in my own area working on my project. Half an hour later I heard yelling, Hurrying down the hall to her room, I saw a crowd of people surrounding the area, and I was quickly ushered away before I could see what was going on. After things quieted down, I managed to ask one of your engineers what had happened. He told me that someone had gone to check on Miss Laverne and found the poor woman sprawled in the center of her room, bloody and crying. She clawed out her own eyes, Mr. Fetterman. Somehow her experience in the room drove her to take her own sight. When I asked Mr. Sherman about it, he told me that only that Jennifer had had an accident, but that she was taken to the hospital and she would be okay. As I mentioned, I've been in the room myself, having gone in later that day. Security had cornered off the room, but nobody was monitoring the area, so it wasn't difficult to get inside. The effects on the room's design, with this BVB blackened interior and slanted floor, it's almost instantaneous. Within seconds, I felt nauseated and had to resort to crawling to reach the middle of the room, all the times watching as my hands disappeared into the black fog. As I went, my need for visual stimuli forced me to keep my eyes in the mirror across the room. In it, I started to see things that couldn't possibly exist. First, the air seemed to fill with swirling tendrils of colour, followed by sparks of light like the flash bulb of a camera for floating, and ghostly disembodied eyes were watching me. Worst of all, there was my reflection looking back at me. I don't know how. Maybe the floor was curved towards the mirror wall, or the lack of defined space messed with my sense of direction. All I know is I found myself crawling towards my reflection, rather than the center of the room. Or worse, my reflection was crawling towards me, staring at me, watching me watching it approach. I tried to change direction, but I swear to you, it kept crawling towards me. No matter how I tried to turn and orient myself, the more I looked into the eye of my own reflection, the less human it appeared. Every second was like watching my face smeared, like a painting, my eyes, my cheeks, nose, lips turning runny like melted wax. But the one thing I will never forget, the image seared into my brain of the entire experience, was when I stopped in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. It stared back at me, and then trying to stand up. As I raised my head, I found myself looking over the shoulder of my own reflection and seeing my face again, behind the reflection, and also looking over it. In other words, the face I had come to accept of my own was not. There was somebody else between me and the mirror. Someone who, even as the realization came rushing at me, stared up at me with the same horrified expression on its face, its features melting. I was ready. It was really way too much. I was ready to follow Genevieve and claw my own eyes out. The only reason I'm here, able to tell you about it now, is that I let go. I just let myself fall backwards, striking my head on the floor in the process. I blacked out a bit, but I remembered rolling down the slanted floor and then hitting the wall. The door must have been swung open from the force, because when I came to, I could see out into the hallway, and I dragged myself out. I swear that before I got out and shut the door, I looked back and saw my reflection. Only it was standing in the center of the room, watching me leave. That room is cursed. BVB has turned it into a residence of something sinister and malevolent. But that's not even half of it, Mr. Fetterman. Pieter's Edartu's plan was the polar opposite of Miss Laver's. Rather than a person in a room devoid of light, he had your team help him build a full coverage cloth bodysuit using the BVB process. Now, Everything upsetting about Laver's room one could explain away as tricks of the mind, ignoring the fact that she's currently missing. What happened to Beata, though, I assure you cannot be explained. His suit was finished in a week before Miss Laver completed her room. I watched him be helped into the suit for the first time, the team struggling to find where his legs went and then his arms. Once he had all 4 limbs clothed, they still had to find the zipper and hood to completely seal him in. Upon donning the full bodysuit of BVB, the effects were truly astounding. Beata became a foggy black silhouette. You couldn't tell if you were looking directly at him. He had his work room installed with almost 24 large flood lamps, drowning at every angle with harsh lighting, and still the suit cast a shadow. Nobody else in the room had a shadow, but Beata in his suit did. Even more amazing, when he moved, he left a trail of blackness, a sort of after effect of where he'd been. I've never seen anything like it. He put the BVB suit on for short intervals every day, increasing the length he spent inside each time. He told me he enjoyed the way it unnerved the people around him. I asked him what it was like when he sat inside, and he remarked, "I can see inside you. I can see your bones." I'm not sure if he was joking or not. Beata spent every working day setting up and taking pictures of himself against various backdrops to see how the BVB of the suit affected the pictures. There was one I saw of him standing in a glass box filled with water. The water looked like ink. Beata told me the way the water refracts the light, it seemed to be magnifying the BVB's absorption effect. After Laver's incident, but before I went into a room and experienced the horror of that emptiness firsthand, I rushed to Beata's dressing room to tell him what had happened. He had been wearing the suit since before I got to work, the longest amount of time he'd ever kept it on. He was sitting at his desk, clad completely in the BVB bodysuit. I told him of Laver, and he became understandably distraught, asking me to help him out of the suit so we could go to the hospital. At first, I couldn't find the zipper. My hands would disappear in the foggy blackness of the suit's effects. Eventually, I found the zipper and unzipped him. There was nothing inside him, Mr. Fetterman. The suit fell away as if draped on a frame of empty air. The hood deflated like a balloon and dropped onto the floor alongside with the rest of the material. Stranger yet, Beata still seemed to be inside the suit. He was pulled up on the floor in an undefinable pile like a hole in the floor, but I could hear him from inside it. And wherever he was, he sounded terrified. I could hear him start to scream, echoing from out of the suit's interior like he was falling through a great, endless void. His voice never faded off like it does as someone falls away. He was always right there, screaming, calling my name, begging me to get him out. I gathered up all the material and tried shaking it, thinking maybe I could shake him out of the hole, but I had to drop it quickly because of the way my hands disappeared inside it. I was afraid I would fall into the suit as well. I immediately hurried to Mr. Shernan's office across the research area and told him about Beata. He seemed more put out than concerned, made a quick phone call and told me to stay put while he marched off to Beata's room with a group of men from your security. I sat around in his office for a couple of hours before he finally returned with a gentleman, Mr. Klein from your legal department. They assured me that Beata was all right, that what I had seen was simply the BVBs playing tricks on my eyes. They fed me a bunch of hogwash about how my vision hadn't fully adjusted to the bright lighting of the room, then instructed me to sign a form to waive my rights towards speaking about either of the incidents. It was after they had someone escort me back to my own work area. And I ventured over to Genevieve's room and experienced its horror myself. That was yesterday, Mr. Fetterman. I called in sick this morning with no intention of going in today or any other day out of fear of my own safety. Already my phone has rung at least 20 times this morning from different unknown callers. Mr. Sherman tried to reach me half an hour ago and left me a cryptic voicemail saying, "I hope we don't have to initiate a breach of contract clause." I've looked over my contract with your company, Demtronic, but I still have no idea what he meant by that. It sounded like a threat. There's something evil in Beyond VantaBlack, Mr. Fetterman. Something Mr. Sherman does not want people to know about. Miss Lever is missing. Mr. Edartu is missing. I'm afraid I may go missing as well. I hope I'm not making a grave mistake by trusting you with this information. Please contact me via this email address or the number provided below. Sincerely, Thomas Laurent, artist for hire. That was Beyond VantaBlack by William Dalphin. Details about the author, including links to the story, can be found in the description below. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video and to subscribe and hit the notification bell to ensure that you don't miss any of my future videos. It really helps this channel out if you do this. You can also check out links to various things, including the podcast version of Storytime with Grax, in the description section down below. Thanks again for watching, and pleasant dreams.